So I hate to start a video off this way, but we are so close to 1,000 subscribers, so please hit that like and subscribe button. It means the world to me and really helps out the channel. There's an old saying that sometimes you have to go backwards to move forward. And where gaming is concerned, Bleak Sword DX might be one of the best examples of a game that requires this. Now, it's not something that you immediately think of, but in this game where it seems like the only path is forward, sometimes the best action is going back. I'm Nima, and today I want to talk about Bleak Sword DX. This is the newest published game by Devolver Digital, and to be honest, that's the only reason I bought it. Well, that and the price. When I looked at the actual screenshots, I thought, this looks kind of, well, simplistic, cheap. A lot of bad terms that I thought when I saw it. But again, Devolver doesn't put their name on anything, and I thought even if I don't like the game, it's going to be at least quality. And as we start the game, we enter a scene where the king is assassinated. His assassin now sits firmly in the throne, with his cursed blade at his side. Now, since he has taken over, the land have become covered in miasma. They've been covered in this curse. Everything is dark, hopeless, and bleak. But that's where you come in, because you find out that there are 3 magical stones that you can acquire that will help break this curse and set it right, which is wrong. So this game is actually pretty simplistic. There's only a few moves that you have. You have a block, a roll, attack, and if you hold the attack button, you can do a heavy attack. That's really about it. But it's important to pay attention to these moves because as where they are few, they are very responsive and they go beyond just hack and slashing. See, this game to me reminds me very much of like an accessible Souls-like, roguelike game. Now, before you immediately write this game off or you get super hyped for it, make sure to pay attention to the fact that I said accessible. Yes, it's very accessible in a lot of ways. This game can be incredibly brutal. But at the same time, with the aforementioned moves, you have a lot of different strategies that you can use while in battle. Now, the reason why I compare it a little bit to a Souls-like is not only because you do lose some of your items, well, you lose all your items and some of your XP when you die, but also the stamina gauge. Very important. You can't go in there just hacking and slashing. Now, it is being noted that when you roll, you don't use any stamina, but it does halt your recovery of stamina. You shouldn't worry too much. The stamina does recover quite quickly. So when it comes to avoiding attacks, you can either roll, dodge, block, or parry. Now, you can then block and counterattack, which I found to be the best tactic for a lot of the enemies, but it is a little bit difficult to pull off. I also felt like sometimes the block button wasn't as responsive as I would like it to be. Ultimately, though, I think that was on me because I like to move while I'm blocking, and that doesn't always register. But I did find that countering was a lot easier than it has been in most games I've played. Games like Elden Ring or Demon Souls, I just give up on trying to counter or even block really. I just constantly roll in those games, but I did find it to be a little bit easier in this one. And as where it does share a lot of commonalities with Souls-like and roguelike games, such as leveling, finding items that can heal you, and equipment. Although the equipment doesn't work the same way it does in the other games where you can attach, like, let's say, a chest piece or a helmet or something of that nature. In this game, they're more generalized and they're just kind of accessories. But you only have 2 slots for equipment or for items in general. So inventory management is usually an issue in this game, where you will be debating if you want to keep a healing item or if you'd rather have that piece of equipment that maybe gives you a little buff to defense or attack. Usually they're incredibly minimal, so it really is a hard decision. Now, when you do clear a level though, I will say some of your HP does restore. If you had taken some damage in the level and don't have healing items, you don't have to worry. As long as you can make it through without being hurt anymore, you will gain some of that back at the beginning of the next stage. Now, if you do die while you're in the midst of a battle, you will lose all the XP that you've gained and the items that you had. You have to worry about the items. Again, most of these are minimal at best, like they really do help and you definitely want to have them, but they're not a must. Now, the XP is what really got me nervous because I couldn't imagine losing all of my XP and going back to level 1. But thankfully, that's not how that works. Let's say you're level 10 and you've been grinding and you're halfway to level 11. Well, you die. Well, you lose all of that past 10, which is usually not a big deal because you've only been grinding for like maybe a level or 2. But notice how I said grinding? You don't usually hear that in these type of games. And this is something that I really appreciate about the game and I think offers more accessibility. So let's say you're at the end of a biome and you're close to a boss, or maybe you're just at a hard stage with new enemies or just difficult enemies. I've had a couple where I just couldn't get past for a while. Well, I end up going back. And since each stage takes like 30 seconds to maybe 2 minutes to complete, it was no big deal to even just go all the way back through every battle I've been through. And that really helped. Like, I could grind, I could gain levels, and then when I got to a point where I'm fighting a boss, I could feel like I was leveled up enough, and it really didn't take very long. That is one thing about this game that I think is very addictive, is how quickly all this happens. In a game like, let's say, Elden Ring, sometimes you have to grind for a very, very long time, and it just feels like a whole slog, and that's not what this game is at all. Now, I promise I'm gonna stop comparing it to Souls-like games or even roguelike games, because I know it's not that. It's just the closest comparable thing I can think of, and the way that they approach the game can sometimes make someone like myself a little bit anxious about getting into it, because I don't like the games where you have your character built up and then you die and you lose everything, and then you have to start over from zero again. Many of these games are just incredibly annoying, and I don't like the idea that you have to start back at level 1, which is another great thing about this game. If you die, it's fine. You're just stuck where you died. Like, if you were at the 3rd biome in the 4th stage, then you're there at 3-4. You don't have to start back all the way over at the 1st level, 1st stage. And honestly, I think this is something that should be far more common. So let's be honest, a lot of people don't finish very many games, and this is one of those reasons why. Because when you have a run going, and you're pretty far into the game, and then you die and you have to start over at the very beginning of the game again, it just takes all the air out of your sails and doesn't really want to make you play the game. Not to mention the fact that usually there is a story attached to the game. There is a narrative, there's enemies, there's characters, there's a whole world that the developers created for you to see, but you're not going to see it if you're just constantly being frustrated and thrown all the way back to the beginning of the game. So I really, really like that about this game, because it does let you know that, hey, you're going to be able to beat this game at some point. You just might have to pay attention to enemy movements, grind a little bit, and ultimately have some luck on your side. But I will say that there is a ton of different biomes in this game and a ton of different worlds. Like, you really get a lot of bang for your buck. My favorite levels, though, happen to be when you're on horseback and you're riding through this area. And it's just because so many of the levels feel like they're trapped. So you're kind of stuck in like this box. You can't move out of it. You have to beat all the enemies to move forward in the game and go on to the next stage. But these kind of actually make you feel like this is a real living world. Because you are on horseback, you're moving quickly, and you can kind of see this world is still moving while you're still in this same quote-unquote box. And I will say, ultimately, the battles never last that long, so it never feels suffocating. But I will say one thing, I wish the boxes or the level, the visual aspect of it could be upgraded a little bit or increased in size. There were times when it was kind of hard to see my character, when all you really have is black and white, your character's black and white. I mean, all the imagery in like the cutscenes, I didn't see half of what they were saying was happening. It's not great, and I know a lot of people are not going to like this aesthetic, but don't let that ruin this game, because it has some amazing mechanics, just incredibly tight. Not to mention the fact that this is one of those games that I think, especially again for the price, is one that you can play for a little while, turn off, and then come back to later on. It's one of those like almost forever games that you could just keep going on, maybe when you're deciding what else to do, or honestly, there's been many times where I've been playing it and it gives me that whole aspect of I just want to try one more round, see how far I can go. And I really feel like the game facilitates that by not punishing you for dying. If you die, well, it's fine. Just, think of a new strategy or something like that. Pick up where you left off and you're good to go. Ultimately, I was really impressed with this game and I liked it far more than I thought I would. At the value price, and I keep bringing this up, but for $10, it's so worth it. Not to mention the fact that I think this is a good entry game for someone who's like kind of wanting to get into maybe the roguelike, Souls-like games, or maybe want to understand what some of that is about. Because I kid you not, yes, this game is kind of brutal, and there will be moments where when you win, you just feel this tremendous achievement, like you actually accomplished something. The same feeling that a lot of Souls-like players have. Well, you can have that too. All of that is kind of wrapped up in this little $10 package, and with fantastic battle mechanics, amazing controls, and some really killer sound effects that just fully immerse you in this game, I think that this is a winner. Like, this is a hidden gem if no one's talking about it. I would rank it at honestly like a 9 out of 10, which is incredibly high, I know, for something so simplistic, but I think it earns it because it is simplistic, but what it does right, and it knows where to stay in its lane, and this is exactly the type of game I think a lot of people should get into, especially if they're into like the Souls-like or roguelike games, or they just kind of want to dip their toe in it. This is a great entry point. Anyway, that's my thought on Bleak Sword DX. Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comment section below. If you're interested in this game, or if you're interested in any other games, just let me know. Love you guys. Bye-bye.